Are you thinking about or planning a move to Fort Lauderdale? Well, today we're going to talk about the 7 things you should know about living in Fort Lauderdale before you make your move, so stay tuned. What's up everyone, it's Tanner and I am so happy to be back with another video. If you want to know everything about living, working, eating, sleeping, and playing right here in Fort Lauderdale, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap the little bell so you get notified every time I do a new video. Alright, now I know planning a move isn't an easy task and you probably have some questions and maybe you have no idea what to expect, where to live, or what things you should know, especially if you're moving from another state or even another country. So I wanted to make this video and share some things that you should know before making your move down here to sunny South Florida. So for most people, number 7 is the most important and the thing I get asked about all the time. So make sure you stick around for that one. And speaking of questions, I've been getting so many calls, emails, texts, Facebook messages, you name it, every single day from people who are moving and relocating here to South Florida, and I absolutely love it. So if you're even thinking about making a move here, you've got to reach out to me. All my contact info is in the description, and I'd love to help you however I can. So the good news is I've lived here in Florida all my life, and I'm going to give you a heads up on what you should know that most people don't find out until they're already living here. And the first thing is, it's important to understand that down here in Fort Lauderdale, it's not all sandy beaches, salt water, oceanfront condos, and nightclubs. If you head about 20 minutes inland, you'll be in the Everglades where you're going to be surrounded by mangroves, sawgrass, and wildlife in every single direction. And I think that's pretty amazing that we can go like 20 to 30 minutes from a high-rise condo that's directly on the beach to not seeing a single building for miles and miles. And we also have plenty of suburban neighborhoods and cities right outside the Fort Lauderdale area with tree-lined streets and larger lots. So there truly is something here for every kind of lifestyle. Whether you want the beach or the downtown lifestyle, or maybe something a little slower paced to raise a family. For example, not too many people from out of town know that we actually have a pretty big rodeo scene in the town of Davie, which is like an old western feel in the downtown area. And the best part is it's only about 15 minutes west of Fort Lauderdale. So if you want to live in a place with a little bit more rural, small town feel, but still have the option to hit the beach any day of the week, you might really love this area. So the second thing you should know about Fort Lauderdale is that it really embraces its ocean and river heritage. Having 162 bridges and over 500 miles of waterway, we're known as the Venice of America. And a study just a few years ago showed that out of Fort Lauderdale's almost 200,000 residents, nearly 40,000 of them live either on their boats or yachts. And of course we love our water sports and fishing down here, but we also like to take advantage of all the bars and restaurants that are accessible by boat. And one of my favorite seafood places is called Pirate Republic. The restaurant sits right along the New River and right by downtown Fort Lauderdale, and it has plenty of dock space if you're coming by boat, but there's also a ton of parking if you plan on driving down there. So yeah, the views are great, but I bet you're wondering if the food is any good. And to answer your question, the food is fantastic. But don't take my word for it, it's actually being featured on the TV show Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives later this week. So if you like that show, keep an eye out for that episode. The third thing you should know about living in Fort Lauderdale is that we're big on the arts, and the artists are flocking here to Fort Lauderdale. And I think it's because a lot of the arts districts in other cities tend to lose their flair and change to more commercialized restaurants, bars, and retail shops, but that's not the case for Fort Lauderdale's Fat Village and the Mass District. They're still very much a hub for creativity, small businesses, and other boutique shops, and these districts offer trendy apartments, studios, and some of the best art, food, and drinks you'll find in all of South Florida. And you can even meet these talented business owners and mingle with your fellow neighbors at the monthly art walk events held here in the neighborhoods. Fort Lauderdale is also home to a huge performing arts theater where you can see everything from symphonies to comedies, plays, and concerts too. That takes us to number 4 on our list, and if you've been following this channel for any length of time, you probably already know that I love a good craft beer, and we have a ton of great places popping up for craft beer and craft cocktails all over the Fort Lauderdale area. So one of the bigger ones that you may have heard of before is Funky Buddha. They have some absolutely amazing beer, and you can do a tour of the brewery, and they also have some killer food. For number 5, we're going to talk about the traffic, and it can be pretty bad around those rush hour times, but overall, I mean, I'm helping so many people who are moving from larger cities or states like California, New York, Atlanta, Chicago, all over the place, and to them, the traffic isn't bad at all compared to what they're used to. But if you're coming from a small town in Michigan or Ohio, something like that, where 3 cars on the road is considered traffic, driving in Fort Lauderdale might take a little getting used to. All right, so this is, a typical weekday at around 3:30 in the afternoon. Not on the highway yet, but just around town. This is kind of what you're gonna see. So, I mean, yeah, there's some cars on the road, but as far as traffic goes, it's not bad. I'm actually on my way to go get a haircut right now, but this is, you know, right around that same time, 3:30, between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday. So some people are starting to get off work a little bit, but I'm still, you know, there's not really any congestion, and it's rainy. So usually when it's raining, people are drive a little bit slower, they're a little bit more cautious, but I'm still doing almost 65 miles an hour right now. No real congestion, you know, just some cars on the road. So not really all that much traffic. All right, got my hair cut. So now it is 4:18. So now normally I know better than to do this and get on the highway on a weekday at 4:30 in the afternoon. But I did want to show you guys an example of traffic from, you know, an hour ago, 3:30 to 4:30. So here we go. So just got on the highway. As you can tell, it's a lot more traffic now. Doing 15 miles an hour, and it's going to be kind of stop and go from here on out. So there's your example. That's why I say, you know, it can be bad during those rush hour times, but anytime outside of, you know, getting around 4 o'clock to, I would say, 6 and 6:30, it'll start clearing up again and speeding up. So if you can avoid the highways during those times, you're not going to be sitting in traffic all the time. It's not really too bad. And speaking of driving, number 6 is you'll most likely need to have a car if you decide to move here. We do have public transportation, but it's definitely not known for being the best. You can, and many people do rely on public transportation to get around down here, but if you can afford to have a car, you're gonna want one. Not only to get around town and to and from work, but South Florida has so much to offer. For example, you can take a couple-hour car ride down to the Florida Keys for the day, or take the family to Disney World for the weekend, which is only 3 hours away. The 7th thing you should know about before moving to Fort Lauderdale is the job market. Now, if you work from home or you're able to transfer within your current company, that's great news, but that's not really the case for most people, and I get these 2 questions all the time, and that's, are there any good jobs in Fort Lauderdale, and what kinds of jobs are there? So yes, there are good jobs to be had down here, and a few of the larger employers include our local public school system, Broward County Public Schools, but just because you're working for the school board doesn't mean you have to be a teacher. They have tons of other positions. For example, you can work as a secretary or maybe a groundskeeper. The school board even has their own electricians. And this should be no surprise, as one of the country's top tourist destinations, Florida employs over 1 million people in the hospitality and tourism industry. Everything from restaurants to bars to amusement parks and hotels, they all need a large number of staff to keep up with the tourist traffic. And we also have large aviation, yachting, and construction industries, and the automotive retailer, AutoNation, is actually based in Fort Lauderdale and employs over 20,000 people. You can find all kinds of positions here too. Some positions are engineering, sales, and also mechanics. So if you're thinking about moving or relocating anywhere in South Florida, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you and help you any way that I can. Make sure you check out my other videos, and I'll see you on the next one.